Necromancy's coming. A whole new combat style. I'm gonna have to comp fast if I want time to prepare. I'm predicting Necromancy will go live no later than October. I suspect Jagex has a Halloween tie-in planned that wouldn't make sense if they saved it for like December. As fun as Goth Christmas sounds, I don't think Jagex will go for it. I have absolutely no evidence to support my suspicions. It's literally just a hunch. We've got the Golden Cape event going on through the month of June, and we'll probably get the woodcutting update in July alongside the Dead and Buried quest, so I wouldn't expect Necromancy before August. That gives me about 2 months to get 120 Slayer, 120 Herblore, and 120 Dungeoneering, alongside a few other odds and ends I need to get sorted. I had promised I'd collect a bit of Dungeoneering data, make a spreadsheet of the XP and tokens, and that's precisely what I did. Can you tell I've never done professional spreadsheeting? As much as I like their utility, I've never really gone in depth with them, so they're not very pretty. No matter, we won't be looking at it much anyway, because spreadsheets, no matter how pretty they are not very good for a YouTube video. So here's what I did. Here's how I collected the data. After every floor, I took down the information from the so-called winterface at the end of the dungeon, the you win interface, that's what they call it, winterfaces, XP, tokens, and the time it took to complete the dungeon. Those are the most important pieces of information. Then I recorded the actual XP drop I got after the winterface closed and I was dropped into the next dungeon. I spent 80,000-ish tokens to skip the first 17 floors, did smalls until floor 30, where I switched to mediums. Then from 36 onward, occult and warped, I did larges. Smalls typically only took about 2 to 3 minutes, since I wasn't worried about getting bonus rooms, I was just rushing through them. Mediums generally took around 7 to 9 minutes because I was more careful to open every single door. Larges could range anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes depending on how stubborn the dungeon was being, and how quirky the Alt1 DG key app decided to be. It can be a little weird sometimes, and it can just function awkwardly. And that's not a slight against people who make Alt1, since it can only read the screen visually, it can only do so much, and it's amazing that it can do as much as it does. The people who make it are definitely good at what they do. Anyway, large floors typically only took around 20 minutes, maybe a little less. It was very infrequent that I would get unlucky and be stuck on a 30-minute floor. That's 112 Dungeoneering from a daily challenge. And we even got some Dungeoneering tokens from the weekly rewards. Thank God, imagine Dungeoneering in 2023. Unsurprisingly, most of the XP came from the larges. The interesting thing is that the XP rate didn't seem to change that much based on floor size. It's a bit misleading at first because the large warped floors yield a higher XP rate than the earlier mediums, but that's not because the larges are so much better, it's because the larges are deeper. A large will take about the same amount of time regardless of the depth. Floor 55 and floor 25 will take about 20 minutes to finish, unless you get one of those bosses that takes forever to do, like the Skeleton Horde. But floor 55 will give much more XP due to it being deeper. To get a better idea of the XP disparity, after prestiging and resetting my floors, I decided to run the occult floors as mediums since I already had data on them as larges. Now let's talk about specific numbers from my limited testing. Hey, we got the pet. We got Gordy. The Gordita Crunch. Well, I can't say he's my favorite pet, but it's nice to get him before 120. The average XP from a large occult floor was about 161,000 with an average time of 18 minutes 27 seconds. For medium occults, the average XP was about 78,000 with an average time of 7 minutes 23 seconds. At first glance, you might assume larges give a bit more than double the XP for double the amount of time, give or take a couple minutes, so you would assume the XP rate was pretty much the same. But when you actually calculate it, you find that mediums are worth about 630,000 XP per hour, while larges are worth 523,000 XP per hour. And this isn't a tiny difference. We're talking nearly 20%. So why the hell would you bother running larges? They're more likely to be messy with awkward twists and turns, meaning you're likely to goof up and end up having to run through a dozen floors to open a door that inevitably leads to nothing. Oh great, now you're gonna run around all the other rooms that you've already been to because you forgot to pick up a friggin' key somewhere, and this is gonna be a 30-minute floor. We need to take into consideration the amount of time spent doing all the floors leading up to the occults. Because if you're doing more medium floors every prestige, you're gonna be getting less XP per prestige, so you're going to have to prestige more often, which means doing lower level floors more frequently. So, doing smalls up to 30, then mediums until 36 took about 90 minutes. In that time, I got just over 640,000 XP. Large occults netted 1.93 million XP in 3 hours and 41 minutes. Medium occults netted 932,000 XP in 1 hour and 28 minutes. So the question is it worth it to prestige more often and do lower quality floors for the sake of faster occults? Or is it better better to maximize XP per prestige in order to avoid doing lower level floors. Man, I just can't understand why people are so daunted by Dungeoneering. Figuring out efficiency is so easy. Crunching the numbers after skipping all the floors that I usually skip, the total amount of XP I get from when I start to the warped floors doing large occults is 2.57 million in 5 hours and 11 minutes, about 500,000 XP per hour. The same, but with medium occults, is 1.57 million in about 3 hours, about 520,000 XP per hour. So the mediums are more XP per hour when considered individually, but when considering prestiging and resetting the floors and having to run lower level floors again and again, as a whole, it's basically the same. But what about warped floors? Why am I not even mentioning them? See, they're going to be larges regardless, and that's because of Garaggio cards. A card that adds a multiplier to XP only makes sense to use on large floors since it has a greater value. The card works the same regardless of the size of the floor, multiplying the XP, but because larges give the most XP, the card is worth more XP when used on large floors, specifically deep large floors. The deepest floors are warped, therefore, use the cards on warped floors. I probably shouldn't do this, but I need to shorten this grind as much as possible. Penguin points straight into Dungeoneering. A million Ironmen cried out in terror, and they were suddenly silenced because I don't care. You can buy a card for 5,000 tokens from Brill, and it's random what card you get. But according to the wiki, you're likely to get a Preening Ibis or Thieving Mosquito card around 20% of the time. Assuming you get a good card every 5 purchases, you'd need to buy 60 cards every prestige to have a card to use on every warped floor, since there are 12 warped floors in total. But if you're not max level yet, you're only going to have maybe 9 or 10 warped floors to use them on. So every prestige, you're spending 300,000 tokens. That sounds like a lot, but there's a few factors I've left out. First, I have a 7% token cost reduction for pretty much everything in the shops thanks to the Elite Dungeoneering outfit. Every card only costs 4,650 tokens. 60 of them would be 279,000. Second, I get over 300,000 tokens from a single run through all the floors regardless. This is the case even with medium occults, and obviously large occults give more tokens. Third, there's a 10% chance of getting a Cloning Mosquito card from Brill, which doubles the number of tokens you get from a floor. Using those on the medium occults isn't optimal, but it's not terrible either. Finally, if I'm really starved for tokens, I can just kill that baby Cerberus in ED4 a few times and be set. If I make sure to get a Demon Slayer task beforehand, then I can get some Slayer XP while doing it, and get a little bit closer to my 120 Slayer goal. Look at me planning everything out. I can even swap out one of the Thieving Locust cards for a Cloning Mosquito card on a large warped floor, just to get a big bulk of tokens, like 40,000 tokens or something. I'll just play it by ear, you know? 113 Dungeoneering. Someone called Bon Jovi because I'm wanted dead or alive. Wait, that's the wrong song. 113 unlocks floor 57 along with Calgar the Warmonger, not Warmongerer as I said last time. He guards the last of the Demon High music tracks I need. I have no idea how this boss works. Calgar is the leader of the Calgarian demons, hence the name, and only joined Bilrak's forces when Bilrak stumbled upon their world while experimenting with portals within Demonheim. He defeated them quite handily, and so the demons pledged their loyalty to Bilrak and Zamorak. This was the lore back in 2010 when Dungeoneering was released. Fast forward to 2022, during the Twilight of the Gods quest, we learned something quite interesting about Calgar and his ilk that really shook up our understanding of demons and time as a whole, I guess. I recommend doing the quest and reading all the dialogue. Or you can watch my video of me playing through the quest for the first time. God damn, can I go one video without plugging my other shit? Now that we have the Calgar the Warmonger track, I'm gonna go grab the Still Creation music track. Commenters rejoice, for I've heeded your advice. You can unlock the track by doing the tutorial. Who needs friends? The fun thing about Dungeoneering is the optimizations you learn as you play. But a lot of it is, and this totally isn't a grandiose term, instinctual, and you can't really explain it. It just sort of becomes rote without you noticing, and it gets worked into your routine. It's a bit like muscle memory. One thing I've been doing during warped floors is keeping an eye out for blue charms and promethium ore. One blue charm and a piece of promethium is needed to make a Sachem Blood Rager familiar pouch. Sachem, I barely know him, but you're wondering why bother with familiars. Aren't they useless in Demonheim? Yes, but there is one boss where they're very, very good. The warped Gulega takes significantly reduced damage from everything. Around 75% reduced, so it's significant. But familiars deal 4 times normal damage and always hit against the Gulega. Without a familiar, the boss can take like a minute to kill. With a familiar, it's like 15 seconds. It's really quick. However, it's probably not worth the time to chase down the ingredients after you find out this floor's boss is the Gulega, unless you have a lot of bonus rooms you still have to open. But if you gather what you need while opening doors and solving puzzles, then you hardly lose any time at all. Just keep your eyes peeled. There are other other familiars you can make as well. The ranged one requires logs, and the magic one requires the plants or whatever. I don't even know what they are. But the Promethium or rocks seem to have a more obvious silhouette, so I can identify it more readily. So I just go with the Blood Rager. Most other bosses are trivial and don't require even a tenth as much consideration. Most of your optimization is going to be coming from navigating through the dungeon, not actually fighting stuff. You know, diving around corners and teleporting and placing your gate stones in the right spot. And that's something I'm still not very good at. Much as it hurts to spend this many tokens on something so trivial, I'm gonna have to buy the skill door boost. It doesn't happen very often, but I was bumping into doors just slightly above my level maybe once every 3 or 4 floors. It was getting annoying. This purchase should eliminate that nuisance entirely. Although I think it will still be possible for some puzzle rooms to require potion boosts to complete, but that doesn't happen very often. Daily challenges gets us 114 Dungeoneering, 1 more level until Edemu. This footage here was recorded the day the Golden Cape event went live, so I took a break from dungeon crawling, did a few clues, and got an Amulet of Souls ornament kit. Nice little boost. Now we just need a Reaper ornament kit and we'll have 2 ornamented Essences of Finality. For now, we just have a slightly stronger Amulet of Souls for Slayer. Here's an oddity I happened across that I can't quite figure out. Maybe one of you has an idea. Every XP drop I got was 16.63% more than what was stated in the Winterface, and I don't know why. The Elite Dungeoneering outfit adds 7%. I'm running the Inspire Love relic power for an extra 2% to support skills. Additive or multiplicative, I don't see how this works out to 16.63%. If it helps to know, when using a Dungeoneering wildcard, which says it increases XP by 50%, I was actually getting 74.95% more XP. If the Winterface said 100k, I'd actually get 174,950 XP. When using the Thieving Locust card, which doubles the XP you get, I got 133% more XP, not just 100% more. What's clear is that these cards are applying their effects after the initial 16.63% increase. 1.1663 times 1.5 is about 1.75. 1.1663 times 2 is roughly 2.33, so that all checks out. But why 16%? What bonuses are there that I'm missing? It can't be something specific to the floors because it's always the same bonus. If it did have something to do with the floor modifiers or the bonus rooms or whatever, the number would fluctuate since every floor is slightly different. Does anyone have any ideas at all? Oh, 115 Dungeoneering. The last level with a big unlock until 120. There are a couple floors between 115 and 120, but who cares? Now that we could finally enter the Edemu resource dungeon, we can now claim every day a single piece of loot from the Motherlode Maw. Our first Motherlode Maw loot is a Slayer VIP ticket. You know, I'm happy with that. I went through a ton during my failed laceration boot grind, so I gotta replenish the stocks. Of course, I can't just get 115 Dungeoneering without killing some Edemu, right? It's a good thing undead cluster tasks were added to the game. This makes Edemu eligible tasks more likely. At least I think it does. Oh wow, that Ushabti filled really quick. Pretty fortunate since you can't kill these guys off task. I do know that being on task increases the chances of catching a soul, but at least with other monsters you have the option to be off task. Oh hey, a blood shard. Awesome. Don't know what I'm going to do with it. Obviously make a blood amulet of fury, but I don't really know how much utility it'll have. Most places where the heal might be useful would probably be outshined by soul split with an amulet of souls. Abyss XP farming maybe? But okay, a second blood shard 30 seconds later. Alright, well the only thing that make this task luckier is the pet. I'm gonna finish off this undead task at Armored Phantoms. They're pretty simple to kill, especially if you DPS them before they do 5 auto attacks and then do their special attack where you have to run over to the Phantom thing and hit it with a stun ability so then you can go back or else he's gonna keep healing really fast. The problem is the area is really crowded and cramped, so it's hard to fight only one. And if you're fighting more than one, then you're gonna be getting hit by a bunch of auto attacks and they're gonna be doing a bunch of special attacks and you're gonna be taking a lot of damage and it's tough, for me at least. Getting a soul from my dungeon would be lovely, but their catch rate is pretty low, even on task. And unfortunately, if you do kill them on task, the task usually ends pretty quick because they count for multiple kills on an undead cluster task. We can also increase the catch rate by adding some cursed sand to Ushabti. Wouldn't that be a useful drop to get from Ripper Demons? We'll definitely put that to good use.